So I've had a bunch of people ask me about where they can buy tethers or where they can get tethers. I have one, so we're going to show you how to make your own. I've purchased a bunch of tethers over the years and tried a couple of different tethers that are pre-made, and I just haven't cared for them. They're either too long or too short or too stretchy or not stretchy enough. And so I've gone back to what Dan Campbell and I used to do way back in 2015 when we started Swimrun, and that's to make my own. And so I've had a bunch of questions about how to make one, where to get the materials for one. I purchased this. You can get this at most hardware stores. You can get it online via Amazon, but it's basically 1/4 inch in diameter shot cord. And they come in a variety of different colors, different manufacturers make them, but I've found that the 1/4 inch seems to be the right thickness for what I like. It's stiff enough to where you're going to get a good pull out of it. It's not going to stretch out too far, but it's going to be stretchy enough over the length of the cord that it's going to be a very good tether, in my opinion. So how to make it is basically you just take the bulk stretch cord and you cut it to the length that you think that you need, and that's going to vary depending on the height of you and the height of your partner. So you typically want it to start at the waist, waist to waist, with one swimming in front of the other, and you just want to make sure that the person that's being towed, their paddles aren't constantly banging against the shoes of the person in front of you. So you want a little bit of slack, but I don't think you want too much slack because you don't want them to fall out of that draft. So you want them to be able to stay in that draft. So how long you make this really depends on you and your partner's height. That's something you'll have to do with trial and error, so you'll have to adjust it. Once you get that length determined, I like to use carabiners on each end, and so the carabiners allow it to be able to attach to a belt or attach to however you're going to attach it. Some wetsuits have little loops that you can attach to. That's something that you'll have to determine on your own. We tend to like to use belts, and you can attach it to a belt. How you tie it off on the end, it's pretty simple. I just use an anchor knot. That anchor knot's going to form, if you take a look at this one, it's a very simple knot, and it is going to form like this little crossover X, which gives you the tension to hold it in place, and then there's a simple single loop across over the top of that. It is tight enough to where it'll hold. It's not going to work itself loose. The more you pull on it, the tighter it gets. So that's something you don't have to worry too much about, especially with this 1/4 inch thick shot cord. And some of the thinner shot cords, they'll work themselves loose, but this one seems to work pretty well. The way that you tie that anchor knot is pretty simple. You take the length that goes back to the main cord. You give yourself about 10 to 12 inches. I like to put my thumb on pointing towards where the cord goes, and I'll just fold over my thumb once, and then I'll come back over twice, creating that X. So I create that X over the top of my thumb, and then I bring it up and then back through. And I actually need a little bit more slack on this one, so I'll pull a little more slack out. Go over my thumb once, over my thumb twice, create that X, and then I'm gonna feed it back through right here where my thumb is. And with this particular cord, I'm gonna give myself a couple inches of slack because I wanna be able to adjust it later. And then I'm just gonna pull it tight. And as you tighten it and dress up the knot, and tighten it and dress up the knot and whatnot, you'll see your X get created. So there's your X. And then just pull it tight. That's it. There's all there is to it. And then the cool part is it creates sort of like a noose, in the sense that you can just pull it tight onto the carabiner, like so. And like I said, the more you tug on this, the tighter it's going to get, and give the elastic aspect of it too, like so. There you go. That's all there is to it. Pretty simple. Now, another thing is that what do you do at the ends? Because once you cut it, this is going to fray. So let me show you how you fix the fraying aspect. So once you get the length all squared away, you go ahead and cut your cord. Leave a little bit extra because you'll need a little extra room to take the outside portion of the cord and fold it down and then melt it back into place. So just give it a good clean cut. And then take the outer portion of it and kind of fold it down to expose the rubber. And the reason being is that the outer portion of the cord will melt together when you heat it up. This will prevent it from fraying and just ended up looking like a pom-pom. You can see that just by taking it down, it's already beginning to fray a little bit. And so over time, that'll all fray down. So you want to expose the rubber, because what happens when you heat up the rubber is it's just going to burn. So it's not going to melt in place. It's not going to singe and become one little piece like what you want, a nice smooth end. It'll just burn. So get it pulled down. Probably about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch is probably sufficient. Maybe a little bit less. And then to show you kind of what happens when you burn the rubber, you'll see it won't melt at all. It'll just catch on fire, create a lot of black smoke, but it's not gonna melt away. It's not gonna create a nice surface. So you want to get that sheath pulled down and then cut away the excess rubber. And you'll see why here in a second. Get a nice smooth cut. Get all the pieces off. Good and flat. If you leave any sticking up, it'll just poke through the sheath. So, and then you take that outer and fold it back. Like so. And that's actually probably a little too much, so we'll probably want to trim a little bit of that off. Probably about a 1/4 inch, right here. And then we're just going to take this piece here and melt it. And you'll see that once we start to heat it up, it'll start to kind of recess and melt on itself, and that's exactly what we want, because we want to create a nice little ball here at the end. It'll be smooth. And you want to be careful not to burn it off too much, because then it'll start to expose the rubber again, and then you have to kind of start over. But you'll end up with this. And if we just left it like this, it would create a scratchy kind of surface, and anytime it rubs against you, it's scratch and whatnot. So we'll take a paper towel and kind of dab it a little bit until we get it kind of pushed down. And you may have to go through and heat it a couple of times, because it does cool down and harden pretty quick. Still didn't quite get it the way I want. Let me heat it up again. And sometimes it'll catch on fire, and that's all right. Just don't let it burn too much. But once you get it pushed down, there we go. That created a nice smooth surface there. There you go. There's how you create your own Swimrun Tether. Be sure to hit me up if you have any questions, and also be sure to like and subscribe.